how can the Atlanta Falcons improve on offense and defense for the 2020 NFL season? Find those answers out in today's episode of Falcons Friday, presented by the MorganMan Sports Podcast. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Falcons Friday. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we are in July. Happy early July 4th right here. This is July 3rd edition of Falcons Friday. And guys, we are getting closer to training camp for the Atlanta Falcons. Actually, as a matter of fact, we are 25 days away at the time of this recording right here to get training camp information in our news feed from the official Atlanta Falcons Twitter page. But also, you can find all the information here on the MorganMan Sports Podcast via podcast, Twitter, or Facebook, or even Instagram, ladies and gentlemen. So I am not going to talk about training camp right now. We are talking about how or just overall, the Atlanta Falcons can improve their season this season right here. I want to start off by saying this just come from me watching old games, like, from basically the Dan Quinn era, the start of it from 2015 to now. And just looking at everything, seeing how we played back then and how we are, and then where we slowly digress from. So that's where all this came up with. And so I'm just sitting here taking notes while watching the game, studying film and everything. And, this is where the podcast idea came up with. So I just do want to quickly mention that me watching old games is how this podcast right here came about. So number one, and that is offense playing defense and defense playing offense. So a prime example of that will be in the 2016 NFC divisional round where Seattle went up against the Atlanta Falcons. And who am I more specifically talking to on a certain play? And that is Ben Garland, number 63. He was a backup offensive lineman. Now, whenever it was Seattle's second drive, okay, it was defense on the field. But Dan Quinn put an offensive lineman on that defensive line, and it caused problems. And what I mean by problems, it made the center of Seattle's offense trip over Russell Wilson's foot, where it caused a safety because that offensive lineman was already in his face the second the ball was snapped, and it was causing problems on their offensive line where it resulted in a safety. Now, whenever it comes to like other offensive players like Julio Jones or whatever, I really would not want to put them out on the field unless I know for certain they're going to get an interception to get the offense back on the field. So what I mean by that is like whenever Matt Ryan has thrown an interception before, Julio Jones had to play defense, and he was, Julio Jones could probably play a safety, to be as a matter of fact, and my God, that would be electrifying, especially in New Orleans, if it's like a 3rd and 8, and Drew Brees is throwing to Michael Thomas, and then Julio is like playing safety or even corner, and he intercepts the pass from Drew Brees to Michael Thomas. That would be insane right there, ladies and gentlemen. But that's the stuff I'm kind of talking about right there. Now, whenever it comes to defense, you can have like Dante Fowler kind of like be a running back or something. I know he won't be like having that aggressive push or forearm, but he can have the speed if the pocket stays wide open for him, and he could get you a first down and then some. So stuff like that is where I'm going with the Atlanta Falcons in 2020. Mix it up. Get certain players out of their comfort zone for at least a series or two, and then get them right back into it. Switch it up. And that's what I loved about Dan Quinn whenever he first came to Atlanta. He tried stuff like that out, and it worked. And then he kind of like digressed from it in the 2018 season. And that's when we started going, of course, 7-9. But pulling out that Steve Sarkisian book really would not hurt right now, especially if you're in Dirk Carter's position, because Dirk Carter, even though you are a great offensive coordinator, I do believe in you, but you can honestly go up against Steve Sarkisian's playbook and take some notes from there and have a very dominant offense. Number 2 on the list is the quick throw ability. So, during the 2016 season, Matt Ryan to Julio Jones, it was all quick throws, okay? Because not only was the offensive line, somewhat okay, but still, those quick throws catches defenses off guard because they're already halfway downfield waiting for you to have a long pass, if you are going to pass, if that is. And then here you are, you're already throwing to Ridley, only a yard or two above the line of scrimmage, and he's already gaining the first down, or even a touchdown, as a matter of fact. And you just totally disrupted the entire defense of your opponent. So quick throws, I wouldn't say really like slants, but just like verticals, pretty much 4 verticals. You could have them going at least 5 yards down the field and then throwing right then and there as soon as you pretty much snap the ball, which it would be kind of like an RPO, or really like an RPO, but it's not. You're just quickly throwing the ball and you're not showing any form of movement of like an RPO. And so that's honestly what I think should work right here for the Atlanta Falcons in 2020, is having defensive people on offense and offensive people on defense and quick throws. And another thing is just the chemistry. The chemistry that we've seen for the players to keep Dan Quinn in Atlanta, Georgia, has been phenomenal. And if they can keep that kind of momentum up headed into the 2020 season right here, it will be electrifying, because that is the number one priority that Dan Quinn always wants to make sure is on point, and that is chemistry in the locker room. And I do believe, honestly, myself, we're going to have that heading into the 2020 season, because as soon as the season was over with, it was like a day after the Falcons-Bucks game, the players were like constantly saying, man, I'm so ready for the season. We were doing so great. Let's go, rise up. Of course, every player says, man, I'm already ready for the season. But the Falcons, in general, for going 7-9, they acted like they did win the division and won the Super Bowl. Pretty much. They were hyped up after that Bucks game. So it makes me think that chemistry is still there, and that training camp is going to be electrifying, especially with Todd Gurley and Hayden Hurst and all these offensive weapons and defensive weapons that we have at our disposal. The chemistry is right there, ladies and gentlemen, and it is going to be electrifying, and Dan Quinn's job really will be saved this season. We're going to possibly make it to the playoffs. I'm just going to go ahead and out on a limb and say that we are making the playoffs at least with a number 4 seed in the playoffs, because this year we have that expansion of now 7 teams per conference headed to the playoffs. So instead of 6, it is 7, and I'm super excited about it, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you are too. But guys, that is all the time I have for today's episode of Falcons Friday. I sure hope you did enjoy, and if you did, make sure to like button here on SoundCloud.com, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast from. Till then, I, Morgan, will catch you all later.